Welcome to the Conscious Marketer Podcast, the place for conscious entrepreneurs, teachers, healers, and authors who want to expand their reach and impact in the world. Join us and meet leading experts where we talk all things conscious marketing, launches, storytelling, and other strategies to help you serve more people. Find us at consciousmarketer.com. Welcome to the show. Hi, it's Richard and welcome.
Hey, it's Kylie.
And welcome to the Conscious Marketer Podcast. And we have an episode today where we're going to talk about perfectionism. And sometimes what we see with really talented conscious creators is they want everything to be perfect before they get their offer out or their service out in the world. And we have a lot to say about that because I think there's a huge upside to wanting things to be perfect. And there's a really big downside that it can actually prevent you from taking action. And in full disclosure, I'm not the perfect one. I tend to launch a little too early with a few errors, and I have to surround myself with people and staff and systems so that things aren't sloppy and things get taken care of and things get edited really well. And how about you, Kylie? What's your take on it?
I am a perfectionist. I'm probably a recovered perfectionist. And the reason that I am a recovered one is from doing digital marketing because I actually want to help a lot of people. I have a vision that's way bigger than me, just like you probably do as well. And I had to get over it because otherwise I'd be sitting in my room just redoing and redoing and redoing every single email. And I had to learn how to write an email in 15 minutes, not 15 years, So I have to kind of get over it, even though I'm a little controlling and I would like to make sure it's perfect before launch. That's not reality.
Yeah. And the caveat to what I said before is that I am a perfectionist on a lot of things like sales pages and the way certain things are done. And our running joke is I'll spend hours on button size and color. And then there's other things that just scare the bejesus out of me. And they still do. And when I was initially starting to launch for bigger companies where their email lists might be 100,000 people, I would send 10 or 15 even sample emails and click every link in the email and then be worried because it's your reputation on the line, when you have somebody's trusted you to mail to their list, then you want everything to be correct. So let's just jump right into the topic here. And I think the negative side of perfectionism is you can always be waiting to get everything perfect before you launch. And I had a big realization early on in my internet marketing days. And it was that a lot of the biggest launches, and a lot of the creators who were quite prolific, they had pages that actually didn't look very good. They had blogs that didn't look too good. And when I realized that, I kind of asked, well, why don't they spend some of the money they're making to make everything look good? And what I realized is their train of thinking or their focus was actually on they spent a lot of time creating great concepts, but also thinking through how they could create the transformation, how they could be of service, how they could help people shift. And they put that energy into the launch, and they were a little less concerned about having the right WordPress theme and a little less concerned with spending thousands of dollars on a logo. In fact, almost all of them had no logo. And what I saw through the years was that eventually they caught up and they made a lot of their pages and they had logos and built in their branding. But initially they actually had breakout success because they led with massive action and they led with action to create results for the people. So I just wanted to share that quick cap story initially. How about you, Kylie? Do you have any initial thoughts on where perfection arose for you or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I was reading just before we recorded this that 80% of people who are highly, highly creative are somewhat perfectionist, and 30% of the population is. So it's much higher. It's 50% more for people that are highly creative. So part of it is just forgive yourself and don't be so hard on yourself if you're relating to what we're saying. And I relate to it and everything like that. I think for me, where I really started to give myself permission to just chill out and get the thing done was the first time I wrote a Facebook ad because frankly, I had no idea what I was doing. I just wrote something. I spent maybe 30 minutes on it. I slapped it up and it made $1 million, or actually two and a half by the end of the campaign. And so what I started to realize was that I could guess and I could win because that's all I was doing was guessing. There was nothing perfectionist about what I had to say, like not even one little thing. And so that was a really powerful learning lesson for me. And then in my very first launch that I did on my own, I put up a sales page myself. It was on a WordPress page. My mom took some photos with her camera, and that was 10 years ago, so it wasn't a great phone camera. And she took those photos and I put them up on the page. I used PayPal to do the launch. I didn't have any follow-up emails. All I used was a software called GoToWebinar, and it's a really easy thing to do, just like Zoom. It's the Zoom of today, and a Facebook group. And I did my class in that group. I made 20 grand. I had not too much of an idea of what I was doing. And the women that joined told me, Kylie, you're giving me so much permission to just do it really simply. So not only did I just kind of throw it out there, it was validating for other people that they too could get their work out in that way. And ever since then, it's for me, yeah, I want things to be good, but a lot of times we don't even have time for them to be great. We have time for them to be good enough to hit the numbers we want to hit. And I want to sit there and make every single thing perfect and tell all the best stories. And we just don't have time. And so that's kind of how I got over it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And some of the listeners might know a book called Good to Great. It's a kind of a classic in the business field. It was written by Jim Collins. I kind of use the concept that the enemy of good is great, which means if you're trying to launch the great or perfect content and you haven't reached good yet, then you got to work to go from zero to good first, or zero to, slightly bad even, but that it's out there in the market, and then you learn stuff. And so every time you launch, you get better and your launches get better and you learn more, your copy gets better. But if you don't iterate fast enough, then the person who does that, they're going to learn faster and make advances faster than you. The interesting thing, I think the iPhone 13 just came out with these amazing cameras, but the phone on the mobile camera is better than like the $5,000 camera we used to use in, say, 2008. So that's just 12 years ago. So your phone literally has like one of the best cameras comparatively that's ever been created. There's a huge case for getting it out there, learning, reiterating, and then just keep improving. And I want to share a quick story. I was probably 9 years ago as part of a group with Jeff Walker, a product launch formula mastermind group. And they had put people kind of into a higher end program. And what they were finding was a lot of people were going through some of his programs and they just weren't launching. And so what they started to do is teach something called a seed launch. And the idea of a seed launch was, rather than a long sales page and 3 video long sequence, it was like, just do a live launch, get on Facebook and do 3 videos live. And then rather than have complicated technology, just get people on a Zoom call. And now I know that they teach that inside their groups now, and we teach seed launches as well. And the concept is take faster action. If you have an idea and you've been working on something, how can you get it out into the market and make an offer, say 90 days or less, so you can start to serve people? Because then you go beyond having the marketing having to be perfect and you can actually do your magic, which is how you serve people.
I love that. Do you want to get into some of these truths that you came up with that people may or may not want to hear, but hopefully will help them to get over their procrastination or fear of being imperfect?
Yeah, we want you to come away from this episode with a few ideas that maybe can shift how you think about being perfect or whatever. One of the, not to use Al Gore's term, but the inconvenient truths of marketing, that's not a bad idea for a series.
I know.
But one of them is that on like sales pages, often I just assume most people are just going to read the titles. And so you can spend a lot of time on internal copy and email copy and even video copy when The inconvenient truth is actually a lot of people don't have time to read all your emails, your sales page, or watch all your videos before they buy. And so what's important, really, what I focus on the sales pages initially is actually I spent a lot of time on the headlines because I know people will scroll and watch the headlines, a lot of time on email subject lines and the links and things, because that's going to be the determining factor whether people move forward with you or not. And so that's kind of the first inconvenient truth. It doesn't mean you want to create bad or rush your copy. It just means that spend a lot more time on the headlines and the hooks that will bring you people through your funnel rather than writing lengthy internal copy that people don't have time to read and probably aren't going to read, quite honestly.
I took a copywriting course a couple, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and the guy said, and he's amazing copywriter. He said that 80% of people will make a buying decision on your headline. And also that 80% of people will never read they'll read the subheadline too, but they won't read anything after that. So that's how fast it happens, you know? And I'm a copywriter, so this is all painful for me, and I do make my copy as good as I can make it, and some people do read it, but really focusing on those headlines or understanding that people are gonna scan or skim, that's why we bold in emails certain parts that we want to make sure that they read, and so you can kind of think about this, like, how is your copy bite size? And that should help a little bit as well.
Yeah. So another inconvenient truth is that we think it's the page design or the funnel or some technology. And what I would suggest for you to test, I don't say believe it or not believe it, but I think what trumps any of that, or even sometimes the copy, is the energy you bring into the video, the energy that people can feel as you show up on your Facebook Live, or even the energy in your copy. And that's why often, some people who are really trained writers have a hard time online because they write kind of more correct grammar, but it's not how you would speak. It's not how you would actually interact with a real person. And so what's more important than all of that is a combination of two factors. One is the energy you bring. Is the energy you're bringing in that's how can I serve? How can I create the result? And if you bring that energy in and you combine that with, it's like a success cocktail of some kind or success kombucha or whatever your analogy is, the other thing you need to combine into there is conviction. And the conviction means that I am absolutely positive that if you work with me, I can get you the result. And so we know if somebody comes to us to do launches, we've done $50 million worth of launches in the last couple of years, and that's over 50 launches. So we know, we know the system. We know it works. We know if you follow our system that we can get you the results. So it's a combination of energy and conviction. You combine those two things. Now, I'm not saying have bad technology or have grainy video or whatever, but just realize that those factors will trump almost everything else. So that's going to be like 60, 70%. And so bring that in and focus on that. And then if everything isn't quite perfect on the other angles, whether it's, the copy that has correct grammar or the most up-to-date version of some like video protocol or, all these other kinds of things, then just let that stuff go and launch anyway. So Kylie, this has been a great episode. I love this topic of perfectionism because it's something we work with every day, both with creators and in our own business. Maybe we could leave the listeners with a few core takeaways.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that because I really like for people to actually have something to do instead of just taking it in and then waiting to be perfect to do anything. So I think one of the things Richard and I were talking about was this doesn't mean go and be sloppy, don't proofread, have a bunch of typos, rush it out real fast. It's not really that. I mean, yes, rush it out, but not super fast. Just realize that it's equally or even more important to get your work out there. So just get it out. That's one of the things that I would like for people to really understand.
Yeah, and it's much better to take action even if things aren't right so that you can start to serve people. And sometimes what that means is you have to release from like, I need 100 people in the program and just go, look, the people who are going to show up are going to show up because everybody starts somewhere. You start with your first 10 people. When you serve those first 10 people, you're going to have so many insights and you're going to have so many ways that you can improve it. Kylie and I are doing a program right now. It's a second run through, and we were just talking recently, and we're redoing the presentations, and they're so much better the second time around. And so that's amazing. So every time you do it, it's going to get a lot better.
100%. And another thing is that you really can only learn in the actual implementation and the doing. Planning and strategy is super fun. We do it all the time. And it never goes that way. I think Conscious Marketer did 37 launches last year, and we did a lot of planning. And where we really learned was when we pressed go on the launch and got out there and tested things in the market and saw audience response. And I remember one time having to rewrite an entire email series just based on audience response and what was happening in the world too, because things were changing so fast. We had to change all the copy, but you learn by doing. And for years and years, that's the way that I've learned. And it's sort of like fail forward is what they say. Fail fast, fail forward, all of that kind of stuff. It wasn't my natural inclination to do that, but it has given me everything that I have in my life today.
That's amazing. And let's end with two more ideas, two more takeaways. I'll start here. And it's simply, if you're finding yourself getting stuck and you haven't been able to get that offer in the market, or you're waiting for something, then just make the decision to launch, make a decision. And then the thing that can get you over that is pick a launch date. And if you want to make yourself accountable for that launch date, and in the past you've maybe backed away or keep pushing that date out, then what you do, if you want to encourage your own accountability, then what you can do is you can email your lists and say, on this date, I'm going to be releasing this program. And when you make that email out, then you're confirmed. Okay. You've committed to your list that you're going to launch on that date. And then no matter what, you have to open up cart on that date and start taking people so that you can start serving them. I've done that in the past where I create that momentum by holding myself accountable to the people that I want to serve. And that's okay. So that's a great idea that you can use in your business.
I love that. And yeah, here's the final one that I will leave you with. And this is really hard. I do it too sometimes, but really start to focus on not comparing yourself to people. And we all do it, right? But it's just like, do we let it stop us or not? That's really the question I want to ask yourself. And, so many people have been around a lot longer than me, or they have big teams, or they've invested millions and things like that. And there's copywriters. I talked to a copywriter yesterday that talked about 2 billion in copywriting, wins. And another copywriter we had on the podcast has done $1 billion in sales. And I could go, oh my God, I've done something like 30 million with, and that's not me alone. That's me with teams. Right. And so I could start to feel really bad about myself and be like, oh, these $1 billion copywriters. And I could start trying to wake up earlier in the morning and get better and sell more. But the truth is like, I love what I do every day. I wake up and I'm of service to people, and that's it. That's all that needs to happen, right, in life. So yeah, I think this has been a great episode. Richard, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
No, just get out there and do it. And if you're identify as a perfectionist, that's awesome. And get out there and launch your stuff and do it anyway. Get it out there a little faster, move a little quicker, and it's going to serve you well. And thanks for listening to the Conscious Marketer podcast. Head over to iTunes. You can also go to consciousmarketer.com to get the show notes for this episode, and like us on iTunes. That helps out a lot. Share us. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.